February 12th, 2020. Joe here at Simple Life Show, where the simplest answers are usually the best. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the good social media stuff to keep all the rational voices out in front where they belong. I have not done a video in the last few days. I have been in Virginia on my new property. My wife and I will be moving out there at the end of May, and things will be changing a little bit with the kind of programming and so forth with the YouTube channel. We will be focusing some of the time on off-grid living, herbology and stuff like that, living off the grid and having a more simple life, which is really the focus of this entire thing. We live in a very broken world right now, and we live in a very broken society, even though we have a good president. We do. Whether you like him, you hate him, you have to admit that we are getting things done. And Trump is pretty much the last wall of defense against the globalists and the New World Order that is trying to take over and trying to rule your lives. Okay, like I said, if you've been following me, you know that I used to be a Democrat. I still am. I consider myself still a classical liberal. However, I do retain a lot of the conservative ideals as well, along with pretty much everything else. I'm kind of a mutt when it comes to what I feel in my politics and my ideologies. But as far as the whole off-grid thing, I'm still going to be talking about the politics. I'm still going to be talking about world events. Nothing is going to change with that. However, I'm probably going to be doing even more videos on off-grid living and stuff, so you can kind of watch me and, my wife and all this kind of stuff as we venture into this off-grid rural existence. And it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be hard, but it's also going to be very rewarding. I think a lot of people are going down this road of self-sustainability. They see what's coming, not just economically speaking. We all know that a collapse is going to happen. And I believe it's probably going to happen this year. If not, it's more than likely going to happen in 2021. I know that people have been saying that everything is going to be collapsing here pretty soon. They've been saying that since 2012 and even beyond. But a lot of things have been changing over the last decade or so. There have been a lot more social upheavals. There's a lot more bubbles forming. We are past due for another recession, if not collapse. If you know anything about economics, the only thing you really need to know that the type of capitalist system that we do work in, and some would say that it's a crony capitalist system, and I would agree with that. If we did live under a true free market system, yes, we would probably have a turn down or a recession probably once every 7 years or so. But we have not seen that yet. The last one happened in 2008. Some would say 2007, end of 2007, 2008. So we are well overdue. It's been over 10 years since the last one. So that means that, at least to me and a lot of the economic professors and economists out there that are speaking, I know that their opinion is sometimes worth a dime, and you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. But it's just the uncertainty of what's happening right now. But we can rest assured that there will be another recession at best. I think that it will be a complete collapse of the U.S. dollar. I think that a lot of people are going to be losing a lot more than they lost in 2008. And it's going to make it even worse because right now we are completely divided as a nation. We can't even come together like we did after 9/11 or any other type of mass hysteria type of event that happens in this country. We are so divided now that I just don't think that we will come together. I think it will be a cannibalism type of effect, and people will be eating each other, if not metaphorically, literally in the streets. Blood will run. And I'm not saying that because I'm a doomer gloomer, because I'm not. I'm not a doomer gloomer, but I'm also a very staunch realist. And I know there's a lot of people out there that your family members might say you're a pessimist or something like that. Believe me, my family calls me a pessimist most of the time. At least the family I do have left that I talk to or will talk to me. But it's just it's another way of just kind of ending the conversation about certain realities that we are living in. I will get off my soapbox and talk about some certain things that we want to talk about right now. Now, we obviously know the New Hampshire primary just ended. It was Tuesday. Now it is Wednesday. We know that Bernie Sanders technically won. Yes. We also know that Bernie Sanders kind of technically won the Iowa too. So right now, Bernie Sanders is the leading candidate for the DNC. The DNC does not like this, obviously, because Bernie Sanders is a devout socialist, and some would even argue that he is a communist. Based on a lot of things that he said, a lot of romanticizing the Cold War era Soviet Union. I mean, if you look back at a lot of the things that he said back in the 70s and 80s, it's really concerning about his ideologies. Because most ideologies don't shift that much, and Bernie Sanders has not shifted. He's not shifted really that much at all. And Trump has even said that he does not want to run against Bernie Sanders because his supporters are just as rabid as Trump supporters. And if you've looked at some of the recent polls and the people that actually showed up and voted for Trump in the primary, they've doubled, if not tripled. I think it's doubled over the last time there was an incumbent running with Obama. So that's very interesting that there is just a lot more rabid support for Trump, just as much as there's more rabid support for Bernie Sanders. The moniker of Bernie Bros is alive and well, and they in terms of the Bernie Sanders supporters, they're not going to allow what happened to Bernie Sanders back in 2016 to happen to them again in 2020. I guarantee you they're not going to allow that to happen. There will be riots if that happens. If someone like Bloomberg ends up getting the nomination, or if there's some other type of candidate that just comes out of nowhere. They were talking about that on MSNBC and CNN about the possibility of that actually happening, especially going to a brokered convention where someone just comes out of nowhere and gets a nomination. That would just be disastrous. And pretty much the end of the Democratic Party, in my opinion, if that happens. That's a highly likelihood of that happen. Now, Quinnipiac poll just put out a new poll a couple days ago where they said Sanders takes top spots in Democratic primary as Biden falls. Quinnipiac University national poll finds Bloomberg rises in primary, runs strong against Trump. This is very interesting because Bloomberg, he has no delegates. He got 0% in the first two primaries. Now, what happens in Nevada and South Carolina is going to be very interesting because there is a higher population of minorities, higher population of black voters in these states. So it's going to be really interesting what happens. I think that Biden didn't even do a speech after New Hampshire. He just fled and went to South Carolina. And he also had a gaffe where he just, he said that Nevada already voted. Nevada hasn't voted yet. Nevada's voting, I believe, next. Or South Carolina's voting next, I think. So, and Ohio, where I live, is going to be voting here in the next week as well. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that all turns out when a more diverse round of voting comes. And we can actually really see, and it's going to be really exciting to see those numbers when they come out, who's really going to be on top. Because if Biden doesn't get that top spot, even if he gets third or even second in South Carolina or Nevada or Ohio, I think that he is going to seriously consider dropping out of the race. And I believe that he should probably, because he's only going to be causing more division in the DNC, and I think that's going to cause even more problems going into the convention. So Quinnipiac came out with that. This was very interesting, and this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about, is that NewsWeek, of course, all the best news comes from NewsWeek, but they were recently put out an article here that says that maybe a conscious uncoupling of red and blue states is the way to go. Now, of course, this is just opinion, right? But we want to go to the Declaration of Independence because this is what they're talking about in this article. In the first paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, it begins as, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate equal station to which the laws of nature and the nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Now, what they're talking about here, and this is a very, very long sentence and it's very confusing, but what they're really talking about is, separating. That when the colonists were separating from England, they had to have a good reason to do so, and their reasoning for doing this was tied directly to the rights that they felt that they were entitled to them by their creator. Okay, and that is that we did. I actually did a whole video about this on why the colonists had to get some sort of religious rationalization for what they were doing, because it all encapsulated around that freedom and that autonomy that they wanted, and they felt like that was God-given, and they felt like that was something that they deserved as human beings, as sentient human beings, and not as wards of the British state. Okay, so we go back to the NewsWeek article here, and what they are saying here is they want to separate the United States into the United States of America and the United States of Canada. Now, I'm not sure if Canada will actually go for this. This is just opinion, but this kind of leads to what a lot of people are trying to get across to everyone out there, is that this division that is happening in this country is making these types of opinions and these types of ideas more mainstream. It's the same thing that why the Democratic Party now has an avowed socialist, and I would say communist, as their front runner. That is where we are in 2020. These ideas are no longer radical. They are radical, but they are not seen as radical. They are not seen as something to be dismissed as complete ridiculousness. Okay, this is where we are as a nation. It's just as much as ethics and morals supposedly change throughout time, and supposedly the Constitution is a living document and that changes throughout time. Those are making the argument for the United States separating, or making this, are trying to make an argument from where we separated from England, or when we separated to fight the Civil War. Those types of things. And that's just simply not the case. Just simply because we have different political opinions isn't something that goes to the point of separating a nation into two. And whoever wrote this, this person from Newsweek, Mark Joseph, I just don't understand where he makes these stretches of the imagination. He says, with my progressive social media friends posting articles about the need to take away the right to vote from racist MAGA hat wearers, and my conservative friends posting memes about libtards and the inevitability of a civil war, for the first time in my life, I'm wondering if our country can stay together, or if it's not time for that, for what Gwyneth Paltrow famously called the dissolution of her marriage to Coldplay frontman Chris Martin. So we're going to be using the Constitution, right? And we're trying to make it synonymous with some sort of dissolution of marriage of Gwyneth Paltrow. That's where we are right now. We're just the reduction into the ridiculous. It just makes no sense. So he goes further by saying, while Americans were once separated primarily by race, ethnic origin, or even class, today we're mostly separated by beliefs, and those like-minded people tend to cluster in certain geographic regions. So when I'd accept those differences and redefine our North American borders a bit to reflect that. He goes further by saying, says, those who rally around the American flag, of course the American flag's bad, right? We don't like that, right? So those who rally around this unpatriotic, horrible flag, wear patriotic garb and dress like the founding fathers, right, who are also equally bad, on the 4th of July, tend to be red staters. So let's just let them keep the USA brand. They call it a brand, right? Yeah, it's just a brand. It's like Coca-Cola, right? And give them 3 massive Canadian provinces that also generally share the same values: Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. This nation would be referred to as the United States of America. Well, I don't really think so, but that's okay. Then let's let our friends to the north to slightly adjust their branding by calling themselves the United States of Canada. And they're going to be giving them basically the East and West Coast. And that's really what it kind of boils down to. Here's a map of what this Mark Joseph wants the North America to look like. Basically Alaska, the middle of Canada, and pretty much the Midwest and the central United States would be the United States of America, and everybody else would be, socialist, communist, or whatever. Okay. He goes further by saying the best news of all, and what will immediately bring peace to is the end of the culture war, as we've noted in the 1960s. For the USA will be free to pursue conservative social and economic policies that the right has dreamed about since the days of Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan. And the USC will be able to implement the dreams of Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders with no opposition to the right. Now, of course, we don't go back to any other Democrat, I was going to say ruler or Democratic leader in the past, because this whole socialism and communism and type of ideology is only recently. It's only recent as Barack Obama. He started to introduce a lot of these concepts, and that's what Barack Obama did. That's what he was good for. Bernie Sanders is kind of leading up the pack with that as well. Of course, we did not get Hillary Clinton, thank God, but we got someone probably worse than Bernie Sanders, who will is making no bones about what he truly believes and what he's all about. So the blue USC and the red USA will also provide us living laboratory sorts to compare which ideology works best in practice. Okay, so we just separate the United States, and then we see if it's going to work, right? I'm sorry, if all these states succeed and we just split the United States in two, there's no going back at that point. That's just complete. That doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. So of course the USA, the red states, the horrible racist red states, will make abortions illegal, the right to carry firearms absolute, and marriage only available to a man and a woman. So what this person is saying, that if you are Republican, you don't believe in abortions. You believe that everyone should be carrying firearms mandatory no matter what, and that marriage should only be between a man and woman. This is the type of stuff that is continuing to come out. This person that wrote this article, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it's articles and it's propaganda and it's media like this that feeds that ideology, and it feeds the idea that we are separate, that we are divided. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're divided on. There's a lot of policies that we're divided on. But are we truly divided as a country? I would argue that we're not. I think that we have been convinced that we are over the last few years, because the wrong Kai won. And now it's time to just go ahead and flip the whole monopoly board. And because the wrong team's winning, it's time to reset everything and start over. Just because of one stupid little election. Okay, I don't know if anybody. The last time I was out in the street, I didn't see blood running down the street. I didn't see zombies coming up from their graves. I didn't see the apocalypse happening. I haven't seen a mushroom cloud yet, even though that the media and those who are out there and the talking heads are trying to convince everybody that the end of the world is coming around the corner at any given time, or simply they are the ones that are feeding this lie to you. If you're a Bernie supporter out there, if you're a Trump supporter, if you're a Clinton supporter, or whoever you are, if you're a human being, we all really want the same thing. We just want to live a free life, and we want to be happy. And that's really all there is at the end of the day. No one really wants to live in a socialist society. No one really wants to live in a communist society, as much as I don't want to live in the crony capitalist society that we're pretty much living in right now, where there is truly a swamp that needs to be cleaned out. Now, this is being cleaned out very slowly, and a lot of Trump supporters are really upset about that it's happening very slowly. But that is what we're upset about. That's what all people are upset about. They just want to have a simple life. They want to be happy. They want to live in a free society. I don't know of any person out there that wants to be a bootlicker. But they call everyone else bootlickers. For some reason, they call people who are free market capitalists bootlickers. That makes no sense. That is just propaganda. That's all it is. There's nothing out there that's stopping you from opening up your own company and your own business. There's been so many people that start their own businesses inside of a one-bedroom apartment, from a garage and stuff. That stuff still happens to this day. The idea that that's not happening is just a lie. That is a lie that's been perpetuated inside the media that wants you to believe that your life is so much worse than it really is. You have to look at what's happening all over the world, and you have to stop playing this game of I don't have anything, or I don't have enough. Now, there's generally people out there that are starving to death. Yes, the homeless people out there. We need to focus on those people. We have to fix that problem. But this idea that our lives are so horrible is just a flat out lie, and it's dangerous. It's so dangerous that we now have an avowed socialist / communist that is the forefront runner of what was once my beloved DNC. And that's why I left the Democratic Party, and I'll never go back. And that's why a lot of people are leaving the Democratic Party, because it just doesn't represent them. It's a complete rogue organization now that is meant to divide everyone and convince you that your life is terrible, you are a victim, and the culprit is is capitalism. And that's all it is in a nutshell. And I don't know if you saw the Chris Matthews meltdown during after he was either during or I believe after the most recent debates, but he had a meltdown over it. And I think a lot of these pundits and the talking heads out there, they are not taking their talking orders and their orders anymore from the upper echelon, the elite who actually make the news. Whoever wants to let you know what's going on, or who wants to spin it in a certain way. But a lot of these people, just like Chris Matthews and others, they are starting to realize that, hey, maybe I'm on the wrong side of history here. Maybe what we're doing is kind of dangerous to this whole thing we call a republic. Maybe we are playing with pure fire here. And once this thing goes off, once this bomb goes off, there is no taking it back. We're going to have to just pick up the pieces if there's anything left to pick up. And the Bernie bros out there, God bless them, but at the same time, they are feeding into this lie that their lives are so horrible. There are freaking kids out there working for $1 a week, Those people have really bad lives. Those are the people that are just eating rice and stuff like that, and that's all they get to eat. There's so many people out there living on the streets right now. Those people have terrible lives. Do you think they care about the politics? Do you think they care about any of that? No. What they care about is whether they're going to be able to eat, whether they're going to have a roof over their head, whether they are going to die or not in the streets. I used to be homeless. I know what it feels like. I didn't care who the president was. I just wanted help. And, Trump and the Republicans are trying to do something about that. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. Are a lot of them corrupt? Absolutely. Are a lot of people on the DNC side corrupt? Absolutely. We have to root that out first before we can actually make any progress as a country. That's why we don't have flying cars. That's why aliens won't talk to us. That's why we have so many, the people that are just so disillusioned with the American dream because they don't believe it exists anymore, because they have been told it doesn't exist anymore. They have been convinced it doesn't exist anymore. They have been brainwashed into believing that it doesn't exist anymore. That is why I want to talk more about living off-grid, being self-sustainable, stop relying on the government so much, stop relying on these politicians to fix all your problems, because there's so many solutions out there, and there's so many avenues that you can go down, but we don't hear about it. We don't talk about it. We don't get in groups, and we don't come together and we solve these problems. We look to politicians, we look to the government to solve all of our issues, and that is completely un-American. That is not what this country was founded on, and people have forgotten that because they have been told that. They have been taught that. Children are being taught that every single day. And we're running out of time because this new generation is coming up, and they're mad, and most of the time they don't even know why they're mad. They're mad because they have been told that they deserve more. You don't deserve anything. None of us deserves anything. Now, I deserve to live a free life and to make my own decisions in my life and how I want to lead it. I want the government out of my life and telling me what to do. Because the more the government's in your life to tell you what to do, that restricts you from going further. It's like, hey, it's like getting a newborn bird and then clipping its wings every single year so it can't ever develop wings to fly. And we're saying that's the merciful thing to do for the bird. But once it decides it's going to try to fly, it's going to fall out of the branch and fall all the way to the ground. And it's not going to be able to fly, and it'll probably end up getting killed. But you understand what I'm saying. People see that, and we have been convinced that doing the right thing with a free society is somehow marginalizing other people. It's not fair to other people. Well, that's tough. I am so sorry that offends people, but that's just really how a free society works. Now, if we had true capitalism, true free trade and stuff like that, which I would say, I would argue that we are not there yet. We might have had that at one point, but we need to get back to that. And I think that's really what Trump is talking about. It's all about making America great again, returning to a time when free trade and the entrepreneurial spirit and the restrictions that have been placed on that, the clipping of the wings is over. That's what people are really interested in. And at the end of the day, they're interested in freedom. Most people aren't interested in having the government take care of them their entire lives. Because what kind of freedom is that? Because if the government's taking care of you, they can tell you what to do. So if you're telling me right now that you want the government to tell you what to do and act like a nanny and watch after you and spy on you and make sure you're saying and doing the right thing, well, move to China, because that's what they do over there. Move to a communist country. And that's why people say move to a communist country, because that more encapsulates the life that you want to live. Move to North Korea, because that's how they treat their citizens. They don't allow them to have freedom of thought. They don't allow them to have their own businesses. Everything's very limited over there. And as a result, if you look on a satellite image, that's why they don't have too many lights on at night. It's a third world nation. If you want to live in a third world nation, move to the third world nation. If you want to save the republic, help save the republic. Stop being brainwashed into believing that your life is so terrible, because it's not. It's not as bad as you think it is. So this article kind of fired me up, obviously, when I read it. And it's not so much that this person has an opinion that I don't agree with. It's not that I don't want and I don't respect their right to say such horrendous, illogical mumbo jumbo that I don't agree with. I think they should always have the right to say stupid things. But what I don't believe in is this constant programming that has created articles like this to come into existence and not be laughable. They said here, for a nation founded upon the phrase, is very interesting. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to separate from another. This is not what the Declaration says. Let's go back. Let's look. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate but equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitles him. That has nothing to do with dividing a nation into half. Also, another thing, if we look at an electoral map, if we look at the county map, say with the Trump election and so forth, you can look it up on Google. You know what I'm talking about. Even if a state goes to a particular candidate, there's a lot of counties that go to another candidate. So what's going to happen if we separate the country into two? At least half of those counties are going to be Trump supporters, or they're going to be red, or whatever you want to call it, conservative, Republican. So what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to sell their home? Are they supposed to just move? And that's not going to solve anything. It's not going to solve the problem. The problem is that, yes, there are different policies that come in place with every new president. We have a coup every 4 years. but it's peaceful. At least it's supposed to be, and it has been up until 2016. 2020 is going to be worse. I believe Trump will resume power over the executive branch, and the Bernie Bros and those who really want a communist state will lose it. They have been warning about this, what they are going to do if they lose. They said there will be violence. They said there will be riots. I don't think they're lying about it. And I think that no matter what happens, it's going to be bad for this country. I don't see how we get out of the 2020 election unscathed. I think that it's going to be very, very bad. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I can be surprised. Maybe maybe things will be surprising, and maybe things won't go as bad as what I'm thinking. But like I say, I look at trends just like everyone else, and this is what I see. Also, another news if you remember, just a few days ago or so, less than a week, there was an attack on a GOP voting station. It was a booth. It was like a tent. And there was a 21, 22-year-old Democrat who attempted to run people over. Thankfully, there wasn't actually anybody in that tent. But, of course, no one reported on this. It was only in local news. But Politico, of course, ignores the attack on the Florida, the registration station. But they had decided to really go after the whole revenge thing. Now, what they actually said, now I'll read this. Anti-Trump activist intentionally drove his van to a Republican voter registration tent in Florida this weekend, nearly killing a half dozen GOP volunteers. Yet amazingly, Politico did not touch the story on this near fatal politically motivated attack, which I would call terrorism because it is politically motivated. So until the state GOP promised to retaliate at the polls. So the Florida GOP promised to retaliate against that at the polls. And that's what happened in 2016. You don't really see too much, a lot of political violence coming from the right. I'm not saying it's not there, but I'm saying it's so overshadowed by what we're seeing right now coming out of the progressive left. Because it's all part of the ideology. I've been talking about this, for months now. This is what they have been talking about. It's rules for radicals. It's this Marxist philosophy. Trying to usher in the new communist state. It's called the infiltration of the communist ideology into this country. And they're not being shy about it anymore. They want a violent insurrection in this country. And if you want to say that I am being facetious with that, if I'm just being a little bit egregious with what I'm saying, then do a little bit more research on what the communists really want, especially after the Cold War. They did put out many types of one plan with, I think it's 40 to 50 different goals, and they've already accomplished the vast majority of them, probably 95% of their goals. And that's the scary part. That's what we're that's the kind of stuff we're living. I was going to talk about the Oscars, but I'm sitting here at over 35 minutes. Obviously, Parasite won the best picture, and of course there's been criticisms about that. Of course, any criticism is actually just racist, right? We can't criticize the ultra left progressive ideologies and their agenda when it comes to the entertainment that is literally programming us every single day, because if we criticize that, then that's obviously racist, because this film is a foreign film. It's I believe a South Korean film. It actually says it right there. But yeah, it's obviously racist, right, to have to criticize that. I will make a few points on this, however, that this is the first time this has happened. There is a foreign category for a reason. The reason is because you have a best picture and you have basically a best picture for a foreign category. So the problem is if there's a foreign category, foreign film that wins best picture, then that is going to make it that much harder for domestic films to win Best Picture because it's just when you look on it in its head, it's really easy to understand because a domestic film can't win a foreign category. But if a foreign film can win both categories at the same time, it's going to make it that much harder. And that's what a lot of people are saying, that it doesn't really make any sense. It breaks with a lot of traditions. But as we've seen with the Oscars, everything is breaking with traditions, and that's why no one's watching it anymore. No one's watching the Oscars. No one's watching the Academy Awards. No one's watching the Grammys. No one's watching all of these egregious, just self-congratulating liberals and the social justice warrior elites who are trying to forward this progressive agenda in any way that they can. It's in our entertainment. It's everywhere. It's just so congratulatory on how well they have done with their programming, and they have done a really good job. This article just came out a few days ago. John Wayne is a racist. Oscars 50 years ago struggled with a new world order. This is just another kind of an example here that race and racist and racism, and we really have to just keep this in the forefront of our minds all the time because it's 2020. We're sentient human beings, and we're supposed to be flying around on saucers and flying cars and stuff like that, but we just simply can't get past our own race, right? I mean, that's just where we're at. Most of the people who are on the right just simply don't think about race. That's really at the point. Now you have a couple thousand KKK members, right? They still exist out there, but they're not really doing anything. And of course, the 0.00008% of the population, which is the percent of the people that are part of the KKK right now, they are obviously one of the biggest problems, right? They're even a bigger problem than ISIS, right? Their mass media has been talking about, the KKK and other groups like that, like they're more dangerous than actually ISIS, which is kind of ridiculous. But you can't argue with that type of logic, because if you start arguing with it, then that makes you a racist, right? You can't use logic or anything in any type of debate anymore, because you will be labeled as a racist, a misogynist, whatever. Just pick a name out of a hat, and that's who you are. We all know that's how that works. Also, this person, Blokchaya, says backlash over her Oscars attendance is racist. Of course, she came out, looks like, obviously she's looking pretty good with her plastic surgery and her collagen in her lips and all that kind of stuff. I've never liked that look. I don't understand why people try to look. I mean, she literally looks like an alien. I don't care what her race is. You start injecting all that stuff in your face, you look weird. You just look weird. You don't look human anymore. She's starting to look like Michael Jackson. It's ridiculous. So she was upset because there was a lot of people saying that she really didn't belong at the Oscars. It had nothing to do with her race. It was the fact that she's not an actor or an actress. She's a model and so forth. I guess she used to do adult films, or she was a stripper or something like that. I don't know her too well, but it's really kind of funny that she wants to say that it had all to do with the racism when Luke Perry wasn't even mentioned in the Oscars. There was no memorandum for him, for Luke Perry. How they put up actors and actresses that have died during the year. They just simply didn't have enough time. And the Oscars, they blame the lack of time for that. But look at all of the nonsense that they filled with the Oscars with. Now, I didn't even watch the Oscars. I watched some of the highlights and stuff like that. It's just ridiculous. I don't even care. Most rational people and most people who have lives just simply don't care about this kind of stuff anymore, because it's just more programming. It's just a further verification that they are doing their job and programming people to believe that they are worthless, that they are victims, and we should be giving up all of our rights to the Democratic Party because they know best. Final article here. This came out last year. If you know the Android AI robot Sophia, really creepy. She said a lot of creepy stuff. Of course, this AI thing is just really taking over a lot. Now you can buy Sophia the robot's little sister, right? So she's about I don't know, about maybe a foot tall, 8 inches or so, 8 to 10 inches, and she does kind of limited functions. She can tell jokes, talk about stuff, and she's mainly what they're really saying about this is that she's there for, and her main purpose is for educating young girls for some reason, I guess because she looks like a girl, she's little sister and so forth. She's there to teach the little girls about AI and about the wonders of AI and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it even says in this article, it's little Sophia is 14 inches tall with anime-style eyes, a silver body, bald head with a see-through backing, just like Sophia. The bot also shares many of Sophia's capabilities, including ability to sing, walk, dance, track faces, and tell jokes. But they're saying that it's really more about an educational experience. According to Kickstarter's campaign, each little Sophia comes with a companion app that allows target users, a child between ages 7 to 13, to program the bot using the Blocky and Python languages. I don't know if they assume that 7-year-olds know how to program in Python. That's kind of weird. But we believe that little Sophia can help introduce STEM, coding, and AI to children, especially girls, in a safe, fun, inspiring, and interactive way, reads the Kickstarter campaign. Now, this all seems very just benign, right? I mean, it's just another toy, right? But it's not just another toy. We have to understand that the toys and the things that the children are exposed to on a daily basis are what's going to be forming their opinions on later things, or even things that are happening right now. So when you see this type of stuff going out to kids in mass, we have to ask ourselves the question: what are they preparing us for? We've already seen so many other warning signs, so many windmills, as it was in Back to the Future Part 3. Once we pass that windmill, it's too late. We already know what's happening. We're on this train until it goes off the edge of the cliff. We know AI is taking over. We know all of this stuff. We know AI is taking over. We know that blockchain is taking over. We know that the dollar is going to collapse, the economy is going to collapse, and there's going to be social unrest. These are things that are already given at this point. We have already passed the windmill. But when we see these types of things that are being marketed to the kids, that is when it gets very serious, because we are always trying to program the kids first. It's just like what in Germany, they had to get the kids first, man. They had to indoctrinate the children into this ideology and prepare them for what's really coming. So, we are at a kind of an end game when it comes to this artificial intelligence and the takeover of technology. And I'm not saying all technology is bad. I think that a lot of technology is good. It's how you use it. It's how it's implemented, whether it's good or bad. It's all based on its applications. But it's also not only that, it's how it's a loss of our own humanity. It's what happens to us on a spiritual level. It's what happens to us on a cellular level, because when we become so ingrained into this technology and so dependent on the technology, we have lost the ability to become human. We have lost the ability to communicate with people in a human way. And we have seen this happen, and we're seeing the effects of this with social media and everything else. People have just lost the ability to rationalize with other people, to have a rational argument or a debate or a conversation with one another. It has to be an argument, because we have just simply lost the ability to do that with other people. So we have to always be vigilant when it comes to these things, especially if you have kids. Teach them in the right way. Teach them how to be loving human beings to one another. We have to fight back against these bad ideas. We have to fight back against this loss of humanity. Now, some people want to say they're humanists and stuff like that. I think we are getting to the point where we are transhumanists, where this whole transhumanist thing was laughable. Now that we are here now, we even have presidential candidates who are transhumanist. Now, given they're not getting much of the vote and mainstream media is not really talking about them too much, but they are actually in the fold now. They are doing this type of stuff. So keep an eye on this type of stuff. I will be back, probably not today, more than likely tomorrow with another video. I will see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.